It's the most, has the most scientific background, the most, the most resolved, the most, and practically, a couple of good hints. Practically a cult following in the autism treatment. Bio cult.
No, I don't
Okay.
like it.
I don't like it.
You don't like the cost, but
No, I don't like
the
it.
product.
You don't like the product?
No.
I've got 2 or 3 that are better than BioCult.
Well, I know other ones that are a lot cheaper, but anyway,
They're just as expensive.
you're ruining my whole.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. We'll
You
take
guys
it
are
back.
all,
We
you're
take
all,
it back. We take
you're,
it back.
you're label readers, right? So
Yeah.
tell me, what's the first ingredient on BioCult?
I don't know, but Bacillus subtilis is in BioCult.
It's number 1. Natto
it
is
number
the
one?
first ingredient listed on BioCult.
Uh-huh.
So I thought that would be pretty impressive, but you
Yeah,
ruined
well,
it.
yeah, sorry. There's several others
Well,
that have some
but is it
Bacillus
high
subtilis
in
into.
the other ones that you like?
That not all of them have it. I don't use the same one continuously. I use one for a while, and then I use another one, and then I use another one. Seems to work for me.
Yeah.
So that sounds like something to pay attention to. Check your labels.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. What happens if you have too little vitamin K2? I mean, Weston Price documented a lot of what happens, and he didn't have a name for it, but he knew more about vitamin K2 than most doctors and scientists do today. And he knew that people weren't getting enough of it, and if they weren't getting enough of it then, I mean, they know that people have a pretty severe shortage of vitamin K2, and it's causing all kinds of problems. There's okay, let's talk about the teeth. There's a triage theory of physiology, or just a triage theory that the way the body works is that, like in triage, in a mass unit, you've got limited resources, you've got all these problems all around. What are you going to do? You're going to do the most urgent thing first to save the life. And the more long-term things, you're going to set them aside. So what causes cavities? The conventional wisdom is sugar. There's a lot of people who went through their teenage years getting a lot of cavities who didn't eat sugar in their teenage years, whose diet didn't go down in their teenage years. So why did they get cavities then and they don't get them later in life?
They're growing.
Because they're growing, and that's the triage theory at work, is that when the bones are growing real fast, they need a lot of K2 to get the calcium where it goes. I need to talk about that for a minute too. But anyway, they're going to put everything else aside that they have to get the bones growing, because that's more important. So during those years, the teeth suffer. So let me backtrack again a little bit and talk about what vitamin K2 actually does. So Weston Price called it an activator, and today it's known largely. They're starting to figure out that it does a few other things, but predominantly what they know about is that it activates proteins. And they've identified, I think, 16 or 18 of them, but a couple of years ago, they were up to 14, and at that time they did a pretty extensive survey of those 14 proteins that are activated by vitamin K2. Of the 14, they found that over half were absolutely essential for life. So this vitamin that activates the proteins, a bunch of proteins that are necessary for life, is in critical short supply. So you either need to be eating natto or taking a vitamin K2 supplement. That's kind of all there is to it.
But John, have you found research like with vitamin A and D? There's several forms. Are they showing that with K2 also? Because typically the supplement is one of 20 forms.
Yeah, and so you buy a supplement that's either MK4 or MK7, and there's a bunch of others that are kind of stray things going on in the gut that this and that happens with them, but the two that you need to know about are just MK4 and MK7. MK4 is made by bacteria. That's the one that's in natto up here.
MK7.
MK7. And MK4 is pretty much in all the others that are at lower levels, so in our milk or whatever.
And those are the only 2 forms they're seeing? Because with vitamin D, there's about 20 isomers.
No.
There's MK numbers that go up above 7, 9, 10, 11, and so forth. There are very small amounts of them. You can't get them. One of them is known to be toxic a little bit. One of them is used for cancer therapy, but it's also illegal to sell it because it can be toxic. But really, MK4 and 7 are all you're going to be able to encounter. You know,
Even in whole food
even in
form?
food, even in food. The bacteria make MK7, and mammals make MK4, and that's pretty much all it is.
So
And
easier to get as a supplement because of that.
yeah, like the MK7 is a much cheaper supplement, and according to conventional wisdom, you can take it just once a day or even once every 3 days. It stays in your blood a long time. It has a half-life of, I think, close to 3 days. MK4, it's got a half-life, I think, of several hours, and a lot of people say that you should take it 3 times a day if that's the form you're taking. But there's another argument, and that is that the reason they don't see the blood levels go up when you take MK4 is it's going right to work doing its job, and you don't see it floating around in the bloodstream. And besides, once it's activated that protein, you're not going to see the level being up, but the job's done. You don't need to, so it's okay that the level goes down. So there's arguments and counter arguments, but the main argument, the conventional wisdom is MK7 is probably the better one. And I don't think they know that. I think they're just kind of assuming that.
John, since the Japanese have been eating natto forever, is there any research that you're aware of about Japanese tea?
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that. The Japanese smoke heavily, and they don't get heart disease like smokers should. A lot of different things like that. There's a bunch of things.
Well, you're mentioning teeth, you see. The bones, grabbing all the K2, K7, K2 being used for the teeth.
Right.
Osteoporosis is apparently unknown in Japan, but they've ascribed that to women squatting a lot and using the thermos.
No, it's not the squatting, it's the natto.
Yeah.
And this is a map that kind of shows it. I'm going to pass it around, but it's the top one is natto consumption, and they're kind of like us out west. They're smarter, and they're eating a lot of natto. So that's the white stuff here, and you notice on the map below the white stuff matches. The cantons up here are are correlating with those real well, but that's inverse the bone fractures. So this kind of shows that where they're eating more natto, they're having fewer bone fractures. I'll pass it around.
Yeah, it's not eaten everywhere, but in certain parts of Japan, it's
Some
very
parts of
popular.
Japan you can't eat it in a restaurant without sitting in a special room because it's like a smoker's room. They don't want to smell it. Other parts of Japan, the strong, bring it on. They have different taste a little bit.
Does it smell really bad?
Depends who you ask. What makes it smell is how long you ferment it, largely because and I see all the time people think it's because it's an anaerobic fermentation going on, and that's really not true. But
That's not true that it's anaerobic or that it smells.
people think it goes anaerobic and gets stinky, which is often true of other things. But what's happening here is an incompletely broken down protein can stink like rotten eggs or something. The sulfur, it smells. But you don't have to ferment it that long. You can ferment it quite a bit less, and it'll still be very strong, and so the protein isn't fully broken down. But that's the advantage of making it yourself. When you buy it, that stuff's been made for people that like good, strong natto. So if you don't like strong natto, you're probably not going to like it too much.
So the stronger natto isn't better for you than the weaker?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I'd say there are two main things having to do with strength. One is how many of those bacteria and how many of those spores are there. Another is how much of that biofilm have they created, because that's full of really good stuff. And another is how much have they broken down what they're eating, and that one probably isn't too important. And the other two, the other one, how much biofilm, that's kind of an open question to me. I've gone back and forth on it. Does it get broken down in your stomach? I think the nattokinase is an enzyme. It probably gets broken down. It's a big molecule. Does the vitamin K2 get broken down? Probably. I don't know. But the bacteria goes on and does what it does in the rest of your gut. But where does it do it, and how much of it do you absorb? I used to figure that's where you were getting most of it, but it's not going to get, if it gets broken down in the stomach, it's not going to be producing the nattokinase and all that stuff in your small intestine. It's going to be in your large intestine by that time, and there you're not going to absorb it. So how are you getting it? They don't think you're absorbing it in the large intestine, and some people say you're not absorbing it in the small intestine. But you look at that map, and obviously you're absorbing it somewhere.
Either that or it has an indirect effect.
How do it know? I don't know. I don't know how it's working. I know it's working, but every time you think you have it figured out, it seems to slip away a little bit.
Okay, so John, it's 9 o'clock.
Yeah, maybe. What do you want to do?
Well, I want to see how you make it
We wanna
personally.
see how to make it.
You wanna
Yeah.
go straight to that?
Yeah.
Kind of my